Hello and welcome to another Blue Protocol video. Quite possibly the last one. Today is the final day of Blue Protocol. There's approximately 8 hours left before it shuts down forever, and I'm just chilling in town, and I thought I would talk about the game. Blue Protocol was a very flawed game. I've always been critical of aspects of it. So much so I've had arguments with people defending the game. But at the same time, it actually did a lot of stuff that I liked quite a bit. And I think one of the things it did really well is that it was a very just approachable game. You could play fairly casually. There was more challenging content in it eventually. At the beginning, not so much. But they always took this approach of like, you could play as much or as little as you wanted to. And I enjoyed that. Like, what do I mean by that? Well, there's a couple things. First of all, it was never a game that focused on time-gated content. Like, there weren't really much in the way of dailies. Yes, technically, it did have dailies. I know if I don't mention that, someone's gonna be like, well, actually. But, I mean, simultaneously, like, A, they were completely trivial, and B, they weren't even that important. Like, your progress really wasn't dictated by the dailies. In fact, the only thing the daily affected was your battle pass. So, you earned points for the battle pass on it, but the battle pass wasn't even that important. The stuff in the battle pass was kind of meh. And you didn't need to do dailies every day to finish the battle pass anyway. And besides which, if you did do dailies, they took like 10 minutes. So, it's not a game like so many modern games that are like, you gotta log in every day and you do the same crap to get some reward that you're gonna use to upgrade. It wasn't like that. You could play it whenever you wanted, however much you wanted. You could go in, you'd log in, you're like, I want to do dungeons for 10 hours. You could do dungeons for 10 hours. There's nothing stopping you. Now, I would find that pretty boring, personally. It does get repetitive. But you were allowed to. You could play it on your own pace, your own schedule. Beyond that, there is the fact that just the way the gearing system worked, it was very easy to catch up if you took a break. And I can say that from personal experience because I didn't play this game constantly. It was something I hopped into sometimes, and then maybe I didn't play it for months. You could take months off the game, hop back in, and you're never really that far behind because the whole way gearing worked was like all your, there are systems you could use to improve your weapons and equipment at a certain level. But then later on they introduce a new level, and you're essentially just starting over, right? None of what you were doing in the previous level matters in the new level. So it means, and if you didn't do the previous level as a player because you were taking a break from the game or whatever, you could just skip to the new level. You don't have to do all the old crap. So it was just very easy to, like I said, play at your own pace, do as much or as little as you wanted to. It was like, it was a video game. Crazy, I know. It's like it was something I could hop into and just have fun with, and then stop when I didn't want to. And that's something that I feel like so many modern live service games, and that includes MMOs, but also mobile games are egregiously bad about this. They feel like work. They don't feel like games to me. It's like you log into the game and there's just a list of like, you gotta do these dailies, and you gotta do these weeklies, and you gotta do this and that, and you get some currency or some materials you upgrade shit with, and if you don't do it, then you fall behind, so it's this constant like FOMO thing. Of course, on top of all of this, there is the fact that you could pay money to keep up, which is the whole point, right? Is to lock you into this mentality of like, oh yeah, I gotta keep up with the FOMO, and if I feel like I'm slipping, well, there's always the credit card. And I know a lot of people who didn't, I think mostly people who didn't play Blue Protocol were under the impression that it was similar, but it wasn't. I don't know what else to say. Like, I played the game quite a bit, and it's like, wow, this game is actually, like, yes, they did sell stuff in the store that you could theoretically buy, like boosters and stuff, but there was never any reason to. Because beyond the fact that, you know, like I said, you can take a break and catch up super easily, the game itself wasn't even that grindy to begin with. There's some grind, sure. It's an MMO. But compared to what these types of games can be, it was pretty mild. And in fact, I think one of the complaints that people had about the game was that there wasn't enough grind. I don't think that's the only complaint, but you know, there were people who were like, yeah, there's not enough to do in this game. It doesn't keep you busy enough. And, you know, that was an issue. The game absolutely had issues with content. Personally, I think I wish it had more non-dungeon content in the game. I wish there was just more stuff to do besides running dungeons or whatever. Like, give me a reason to just explore the world or something. Give me more side stories. There were side quests. Most of them were, you know, really basic. Go kill 10 enemies. Get, you know, really lazy, boring stuff. So that is definitely an issue. I think they're an area I think they could have improved on. But that said, because the game was so approachable, you know, I never played it with the mentality that, like, this was my main game. This was always a side game for me, and that was fine. I was fine with that. It was something I could play when I wanted to and have fun with, and I did enjoy aspects of the game. You know, the combat was alright. Not perfect. I think it has some issues. But, you know, it was okay. You know, the visual style, obviously, I quite enjoy it. If you haven't noticed from the videos I've done, if you haven't seen my other videos, I basically always have a different outfit on, because I do like the fashion aspect. You know, they got some neat outfits in the game. Of course, after the game announced end of service, they closed down the ability to purchase anything in the store, but then they just gave everyone a ton of currency, and you could basically just get every outfit. So that was kind of a nice bonus, I guess, for the game shutting down. Yeah, in terms of the monetization, like I said, there was stuff you could buy, you could definitely call pay to win, but there was no reason to buy it. There was none of this pressure that you have in other games of like, oh, I gotta keep up with stuff. Like, it was just so easy to catch up anyway, and it just felt really pointless. I don't know how much of that stuff they sold. I would imagine not very much, especially since the game didn't succeed. It was a failure. You know, beyond that stuff, like, you know, a lot of games sell you so-called quality of life stuff. You know, they sell larger inventories or storage space and that kind of thing. It's another very common thing you see in these games. None of that in Blue Protocol. They just gave you a ton of storage space, completely for free. So in that aspect, it was very generous. I think one aspect where it was not so generous was the actual costumes. Before they started giving them away, after they announced end of service, you know, there was a gacha system to acquire cosmetics, and the prices and the rates were kind of shit. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I spent a significant portion of my time in the game with just like mostly free outfits, and like one thing I had pulled by pure luck with some free tickets. I wasn't very inclined to even spend money on the cosmetics because the rates and the prices were so bad. I was like, I'm just not going to bother. They are cosmetics. They are skippable. And that's coming from somebody who really enjoys the fashion aspect of MMOs. So, I think there is a point where... Okay, it was T-posing. Yeah, I think there is a point where, especially for cosmetics, if you set the price too high, it actually reduces sales because people are just like, well, I don't need it. And I feel like there's this weird dichotomy in Blue Protocol where there's a bunch of crap that you genuinely had no use for, you did not need to buy, but you could theoretically buy. And then there was cosmetics, which was supposed to be the main draw, but they were priced so high, people just didn't buy them. And then you have this like double factor of like, people just aren't spending money in the game, right? But beyond that, obviously, the game did have lots of issues. I already mentioned kind of lack of content variety. Another issue was the progression cadence, I would say. If you don't know what I mean by that. So I mentioned already, talking about the upgrade system, they would periodically, you get a new level of gear, and you kind of start over your progression. You just get the new gear and then work on upgrading, enhancing that and stuff. That's fine. I am actually a big fan of that system in general, because as I was saying, it makes catching up feel much easier. It means you can take a break and you're never that far behind, because you can always just skip towards the latest tier. But the rate they released new gear level, especially when the game was more actively being updated, was really silly. It made no sense. Like, it was like monthly updates. So you would, you spend a couple weeks maybe grinding out the gear. You get the best gear, you use it for a couple weeks, boom, you got a new set out. It's like, what? Like, at some point, you just give people some time to actually use the gear that they farm for, I mean, theoretically, you could farm for everything day one, because again, the game had no time gating whatsoever. You could, and in fact, I knew some people who did this. A new patch came out, and they just farmed dungeons for hours, and they would have their gear day one. I didn't play that way. I like to play more of like a little bit at a time. So it took me longer, but that was a possibility. But even then, monthly updates made no sense to me. It's just like, I should say, monthly updates is fine. Having new content every month is a good thing. But having a new gear level, new gear tiers every month was stupid. I don't know anyone who wanted that. I think Bandai Namco was concerned that because the game wasn't actually that grindy, because it was fairly easy to get the gear, I think they had this idea that they had to keep adding more gear or people would just not play the game. And there's probably some truth to that. I'm sure people did drop off playing a bit once they'd farmed their stuff. But I think the answer was give them something else to do. Give them, just not everything has to be about farming gear, So yeah, the game had lots of issues. But I had fun with it. Like I said, despite the fact that I'm still here at the very end, and I've started making videos and shit about the game, I've never been like a super hardcore Blue Protocol player. It's just something I enjoyed on the side. I think it was a great side game, even if it wasn't a great main game. And that kind of brings me to Star Resonance. If you don't know what that is the full name is Blue Protocol Star Resonance. That's this mobile game spin-off that, is kind of taking over now. So, if you don't know the full story here, I believe Bandai Namco contracted out to Tencent to make a mobile version of Blue Protocol, and that was called Star Resonance. Now, that game really began as a completely separate project, right? It was just a mobile spin-off, it's a separate team, it's a separate country. It was really just a completely different game. But because Blue Protocol main game, I'm just going to call it Blue Protocol, so I'll call this version Blue Protocol. Star Residence, I'm just going to call Star Residence, otherwise it gets too confusing. So, Blue Protocol is shutting down, obviously. Complete financial failure. No other way to spin that. And because of that, because this Star Residence project was already in progress, it's kind of become seen as the successor to Blue Protocol. I've seen people even refer to it as like a reboot, like as if this was a Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn type situation. And I just want to make it clear, it's not. It is not that situation at all. The actual situation was there was this mobile game spin-off already in the works. Main game dies, and obviously they were already working on the mobile game, so they're like, okay, let's push the mobile game. Now, that's not the end of the world or anything inherently, but I have to say, like, everything I just praised Blue Protocol for, like all the things they're saying about how it was so approachable and something I could play on my own schedule, it was not time-gated, all that stuff, none of it applies to Star Resonance at all. Let me be clear. Now, I have not played Star Resonance myself. I should note that, but there are people who have beta tested it, and I've seen videos and stuff about it. And it is a mobile game through and through. It has everything you expect from mobile games: dailies, weeklies, stamina systems, tons of like upgrade systems, each with their own materials, menus on top of menus on top of menus, all this crap just designed to, like, I don't even know what. I don't understand why people like these games. I'll be perfectly honest. Every time I've tried playing a game like that, I just completely bounce off of it. I've tried Genshin Impact, I tried Tower Fantasy, most recently I tried Wuthering Waves. I can't play these games. They just become a chore. They're just like, I can play them for like a week, and then you finish the story and it's like, okay, now time to do dailies. I can't do it. I can't play those games. I just can't stand it. And Star Resonance is, from what I've seen, it's all of that in spades. Just it has completely embraced that model. Like, absolutely none of the things I liked about Blue Protocol are in that game. And I'm sure it'll be better in some ways, just because there is room for improvement, right? I mean, Blue Protocol, dungeons were kind of bland, combat was meh, content was lacking. There are a lot of issues with the game. So I have little doubt that in specific ways Star Resonance can improve on it. But I'm not going to play it. I'll be real. Because it is everything I hate about this kind of modern live service mobile type games. Just everything, absolutely everything I hate is in that game. And for me, part of why I enjoyed Blue Protocol so much was the very fact that it didn't do that shit, right? It was honestly refreshing. It was like, hey, there was actually, there's kind of like an old school feeling to Blue Protocol, despite it being a very modern game. It came out fairly recently, but there was this sensibility, and I don't even know how much of it was planned, or how much of it was the developers didn't know what they were doing. But it felt like they're just building a world and figuring things out, kind of. And it was like, it wasn't so like cynically monetized. It wasn't so like focus test driven. Here's exactly what we want players to do every day. It wasn't like that. No. It also had a lot of flaws, as I've said. But it was a game I could just goof around and have fun. And man, when I look at the videos of Star Resonance, I just feel sick. I really do. It is. I'm sure there are people who enjoy it. I'm sure there are, because there are people who enjoy those games. those games are very successful. That type of game. I mean, but they're not for me. I can't play them. I absolutely can't stand it. If there's one thing I cannot stand, it's a video game that feels like work. I play video games to get away from work. I play video games to just chill and relax, have a good time, you know, see the world, see what's going on. You know, it's the thing I do after work when I want to relax. It's the last thing I want to do is log into a video game and be presented with a list of chores I have to do. Like, I got chores in real life I could do, you know? Why do people like that? Why does anyone enjoy that? I'm sorry, this is turning into a rant. But yeah, that is why I am not excited about Star Resistance at all. And it's sad because, like, I mean, that's kind of the future of Blue Protocol. I will also say, beyond that whole aspect, and that's a big part of it, like the time gating, the monetization, all that crap. There are other things that I'm also not excited about in Star Resistance, and you know, I don't know. I don't have any idea what the story is like. That's a mystery at this point. But I will say, Blue Protocol's story was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Like, it's very anime. Maybe not for everyone. But, you know, I had a good time, especially when I rewatched it. So I recently, I recorded all the cutscenes from the game, because I wanted to do that before the game shut down. And just going through the story for a second time, there's a bunch of stuff that I'd kind of forgotten about, because, let's be real, the first time I played it, it was kind of split up over months and years. Well, not years, year and a half or so. Yeah, so going back and rewatching it, I was like, yeah, this is a pretty good story. It's, you know, it's not Shakespeare. It's not going to win any awards. But I had a good time in the story. I really enjoyed the characters and stuff. And, you know, I don't know anything about Star Residence's story other than the fact it'll be completely different. Now, that doesn't mean it will be bad. It theoretically could be good, but I'm not holding my breath. I mean, it's a spin-off of a failed game by a completely different company. I'm not expecting a lot, let's be real. Another thing I really enjoyed about Blue Protocol was actually the music. I think the Blue Protocol's soundtrack is fantastic. I think it's, you know, some of the tracks especially, I could just listen to them outside of the game all day. Like, that's really good. Guess what? Star Resistance is not using the soundtrack at all. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why they made that decision. But yeah, it's a completely different soundtrack. And it's like, wow, this really feels like every single thing I like about Blue Protocol, they're just saying, nah, we're not going to do that. So yeah, that's where we are. This game is dead. Oh, not yet. We got 7.5 hours left. I will maybe try to log in and record a video. I don't know. It's, like I said, it is 5 a.m. my time when it actually shuts down. And I'm not too keen on getting up at 5 a.m. But it is also not something that happens every day. I'm sure this place is going to be packed when the actual shutdown comes. There's going to be a lot of people who maybe didn't play the game a whole lot, but are going to log in just for that, see what's going on. I think that'll be fun to see. But yeah, for me, this is probably about it. I did want to talk about the game itself while it's still here and still slightly relevant. And I guess half of my rant was about why I'm not excited about Star Resistance. I wish I could be, because, like, yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to feel like, oh yeah, this game I enjoyed, I still have some kind of future. But not when that future just shits on everything I enjoyed about the game. I don't know why that person keeps phasing in and out. I'm not sure what they're doing. Anyway, that's it. That's my rant. This is the end of Blue Protocol. Thanks for listening. Good night.